2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the first Texas Commission on Law Enforcement meeting of 2021. I want to welcome everyone who is joining us here today. Commissioner Adkins, would you please lead us in the pledges?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Hester, would you please provide the invocation for us this morning?
Yes, ma'am. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day and for each blessing that you've given us. Lord, we ask that you be with those in our state that are still trying to recover from the storm. Lord, we ask that you be with our state and local leaders that are making decisions at the Capitol, and for our local leaders that are having to recover from our ice storm, Lord. We ask that you be with those in our profession that are out working every day. We ask for a hedge of protection for them and to keep them safe and bring them home to their families. For those that we have lost, Lord, we ask that you bring comfort and peace to their family. Lord, we ask that you be with us today as we make decisions. Give us discernment and wisdom as we go through this, and forgive us where we fail you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, and Ms. Jackson, would you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Kim Lameau,
Here.
Commissioner Jason Hester,
Here.
Commissioner Patricia Burris,
Here.
Commissioner Ron Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Jack Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Sharon Thomas, Commissioner Tim Whitaker,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Jana Atkins,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Griffiths.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. And just a reminder to my colleagues, we will be doing roll call votes on any motions today, as we have in previous meetings. So I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome everyone this morning. As I mentioned, it's the first quarterly meeting of the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement for 2021. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us here at the meeting. And it's been quite an eventful 3 months since we last met. 3 COVID vaccines have been approved and released and are being provided to people across Texas and the nation. We celebrated the holiday season. We welcomed in 2021. The 87th legislative session began on January 12th. I hope that everyone survived the snow and ice storm that we had last month. You just gotta love Texas. I'm not sure what the weather is where you are today, but we're supposed to reach 70. So great Texas weather. And of course, TCOLE has continued to undergo the Sunset Commission review. And Director Vickers, I want to recognize and thank you and your team for their continued dedication and hard work serving law enforcement and the citizens of Texas. We appreciate you and every member of your team. Each of these milestones have impacted each one of you personally and professionally, yet you continue moving the organization forward each day with your work and your service, and I just want to thank all of you. Well, Director Grigsby, it is my hope and prayer that one day there will be no names for you to read off to us for our next item on the agenda, which is the reading of the peace officer and jailer deaths since December 3rd of 2020 meeting. And unfortunately with COVID, That is not the situation this quarter. Our jail and corrections family have been especially hard hit this past year, so if you will please read us the names.
Yes, ma'am, and I think I can speak for everyone here that we share that hope as well. The first line of duty death name is Police Officer Mitchell Penton. He was certainly portrayed well in the news that happened during all of the ice and weather events, and unfortunately, he was struck by a drunk driver while responding to a vehicle accident. So Police Officer Michael Penton was with the Dallas Police Department. His end of watch was Saturday, February 13th, 2021. Police Officer Mitchell Penton was struck and killed by a vehicle operated by an intoxicated driver while working at the scene of a vehicle collision. He was securing traffic with the emergency lights from his patrol car when a vehicle driven by an intoxicated driver traveling at a high rate of speed hit the back of his patrol car. The collision pushed the patrol car into Officer Penton. He was transferred to the hospital where he died from his injuries. Officer Penton had served with the Dallas Police Department for 2 years, and he is survived by his expectant wife and stepson. And I will list the COVID-19 deaths as well. As the presiding officer said, is unfortunately not a short list. First is Chief Deputy Constable Wayne Rhodes, Denton County Constable's Office, end of watch Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. Officer Richard Rios, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, end of watch Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. Officer Jose Santana, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, December 2nd, 2020. Police Officer Leslie L. Graves II, Perryton Police Department, end of watch December 3rd, 2020. Sergeant Lyle Jean Denny, Panhandle Police Department, end of watch December 7th, 2020. Corrections Officer Timothy Beggs, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, end of watch December 9th, 2020. Corrections Officer Harold Paul Skip Smith, Sr., Texas Department of Criminal Justice, December 15th, 2020. Lieutenant Craig L. King, Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, December 19th, 2020. Officer Andrew Raymond Bouchard, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, December 19th, 2020. Police Officer Christopher Lynn Elder, Milford Police Department, December 20th, 2020. Security Control Specialist Jerry William Jones, Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, December 23rd, 2020. Sergeant David Lynn Smith, Seagoville Police Department, December 23rd, 2020. Corrections Officer Philip Holbert, Department of Criminal Justice, December 27th, 2020. Corrections Officer Joe Landon, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, December 28th, 2020. Officer Troy Allen Adkins, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, December 31st, 2020. Sergeant Randall Sims, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, January 3rd, 2021. Lieutenant William Lyle Gardner, Denver City Police Department, January 7th, 2021. Lieutenant Treva Preston, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, January 15th, 2021. Corrections Officer Alfred Jimenez, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, January 15th, 2021. Detention Officer Robert Perez, Harris County Sheriff's Office, February 3rd, 2021. Corrections Officer Vicki James, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, February 10th, 2021. Corrections Officer Tawiwa Obele, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, February 16th, 2021. And Major Esteban Stevie Ramirez, Bell County Sheriff's Office, February 16th, 2021.
I'd ask that everyone please join me in a moment of silence to honor these dedicated men and women who gave their lives in service to the citizens of the state. Okay, let's move to agenda item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the December 3rd quarterly commission meeting that was held virtually. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the quarterly December 3rd meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Ms. Jackson.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Burris,
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the motion passes. Agenda item number 4 is the receiving of staff reports. Executive Director Vickers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all this morning? You know, I was talking with the command staff yesterday, and I threatened to start this portion of my meeting going live from the Texas State Capitol, but Gretchen said that would embarrass her, so I said I wouldn't do that, so I'm not going to do that. But we are here at the Capitol. I want to give a public thank you to Representative Tony Tinderholt, who was kind enough to reserve for us a meeting room here at the Capitol so that we could have some quiet around us when we try to do this meeting virtually from here. And I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged how gracious he was on that. Representative Tinderholt has been a very, very good supporter and friend of the commission. Well, your criminal misconduct quarterly report is in your packet as normal. You'll be able to see it under attachment A. I want to tell you about some staff changes that we have. I want to introduce you to a new employee that we have in credentialing. Jayla Ortiz Walcott is 20 years old. She was born and raised in Round Rock, Texas. She enjoys music, and I must say, is a woman after my own heart, as she especially likes Elvis Presley and 70s and 80s rock. So I'm down with that. 70s rock is the best. She describes herself as a homebody, says she's very excited to be working for the commission. I can tell you we're very happy to have her here. So welcome to Jayla and welcome to the family. My next item, very reluctantly, we have decided, very reluctantly decided to again this year not have the conference. To be perfectly blunt and open about it, we just couldn't take the chance on COVID being a continuing problem at that time. We would need to invest approximately $30,000 right now to get prepared for it. And that money would be at risk if COVID were to have a resurgence or for whatever reason, we couldn't have the conference, and that's just $30,000 we could not afford to lose. Knowing that you're familiar with how tight we run the agency and the budget levels under which we operate, I just couldn't justify risking that much money. So the committee got together and decided that we probably needed to skip this next year, which really hurts my heart. But it was the prudent decision to make. My next item is dealing with the session, and I'm going to let Gretchen be more specific about our legislative progress in her report, if she's able to give it before we have to go testify. But we had our Senate Finance hearing yesterday, which we feel went very well. And our House Appropriations hearing is taking place right now as we speak. And we are awaiting our turn to speak while this commission meeting is taking place. So if I jump up and leave, you'll know what happened. Our turn came up and I had to go down and speak before the House Appropriations Committee. Without stepping on Gretchen's report, I will say we continue to be excited, very excited about the discussions that are being held. We're very excited about the tension that we're getting, and we're excited about several of the bills that have been introduced. It's going to be a very interesting and exciting time for this agency. The last item I have is to talk to you about racial profiling. As you know, I explained to each of you in an email that I sent out. We had an investigative story done on us about the way we had been handling racial profiling reports. I explained that in the email and how we responded. Please suffice it to say that we have made some very significant changes in our response to that responsibility and are very satisfied with the results and the progress on how that is going. Having said that, I want to take a moment to give you an update on where we stand in that process. I have to start this, as always, I need to brag on the TCOLE staff that are involved in that process. You know, I always seem to be bragging on my team, but I'm telling you, we are very blessed. I'm very blessed to have the staff that we have, and I can't express appreciation and respect for them enough. To say that Lieutenant Canella worked hard on this process would be a tremendous understatement, and the field agents jumped in and did an amazing job. Multiple members of the team worked very diligently through this process to make sure that it went smoothly and was successful. As you know, our stance is always to strive for voluntary compliance, and that is the direction from which we work. There are over 2,700 agencies in Texas right now. By the time we reached the deadline, which is the end of March 1st, we had 15 agencies that had failed to submit all required portions of their report. Chief administrators of those agencies that did fail to report or complete their report will be receiving a letter this week stating that their license is subject to a 90-day suspension for failure to comply. In order to be consistent with how we do non-compliance in the training arena, we kept it consistent here. So we're giving those chief administrators until April 9th to get their reports submitted. If they do so, the action taken against their license will be mitigated to a letter of reprimand rather than a suspension. As of late yesterday, all but 5 of the non-compliant agencies had submitted their reports. We're truly hoping to not seek any suspensions on licenses from this. We're working with the last agencies to ensure that they meet the April deadline and we can help them mitigate that administrative action and get that done promptly. That is my report, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Commissioners, any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
We will go to Mr. Mike Antu, who is the Enforcement and Special Services Director, for your report. Mike?
Good morning, everybody. I don't have much unless there are any questions on the racial profiling or any processes there. Everybody did a great job. We got a lot of compliance and we're working the enforcement side. It was a smooth transition from the collection to the enforcement arena. Of course, we are getting at least 15 calls from 15 agencies that have reasons. So we're going to work through those, and the cases will probably be presented to the executive director shortly for final disposition. That is all I have this go around.
Okay. Commissioners, any question?
Hey, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Hester.
Hey, Mike, can you help us on the comparative analysis side of the racial profiling report and what you guys did, just so everybody has a clear picture to help everyone get in compliance on that?
Absolutely. We tried to get more information on the website, but we also went out and sought samples and templates that we could provide to the agencies so they could better submit. We found 2 good samples. The most recent one we put up there actually does the percentages for you if you compile all your data. Some of the systems out there were not collecting the data properly, so we modified our template to help those agencies, and we saw a huge increase in the comparative analysis and the use of our templates when we added those, because a lot of the problems that agencies were having were how do they compile that data? What is the comparative analysis supposed to look like? So we definitely helped them out with those samples. We're looking already, the IT team is working with the programmers to how we can automate this even further for next year and have email alerts and notifications of proper submission or where your error is at in the report.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move to credentialing and field services. Director Grissom. And Director Grissom, we are not hearing you. And we are still not hearing you. While we work out some technical difficulties there, let's move on to Director Grigsby for the Government Relations Report.
Good morning again, Commissioners, and thanks for your time today. Like the Director said, we've been juggling a multitude of things today. Fortunately, among the things happening simultaneously today is not also the introductory meeting of the House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety. It is going on right now, but they have opted for agencies that are going to be in appropriations today to come back at a later time. As of today, this morning, there have been 48 bills filed that amend Chapter 1701 of the Occupations Code. Among those are 14 bills that relate to training, 6 bills that relate to background investigations in some way, and 6 that relate to policies, uniform policies that the legislature is looking to implement among the profession in law enforcement statewide. Among those not filed yet is the TCOLE sunset bill. So typically what happens when an agency is under sunset is there is what's referred to as an omnibus bill that takes up all of the issues identified in each agency's sunset evaluation. Ours is still pending. We expect that to be filed in the next couple of days. It has to be filed by next Friday or it will be not able to be filed. Next Friday is the filing deadline for all new items of legislation. That's not to say that provisions can't be added on to bills that have already been filed, but we expect our sunset bill to be filed in the next couple of days. We have had many meetings and conversations with legislators interested in the findings of our sunset report and how we see the agency's roles and responsibilities changing over the next couple of years. What ultimately comes out of the legislative session, of course, remains to be seen. But it does seem like there are some recurring themes that legislators are interested in taking up. Among those, of course, as I mentioned, are background investigation, training issues, uniform policies, and also the F5 situation has been a large topic of discussion, and we anticipate several other pieces of legislation filed to address that in some form or fashion. Don't know what the outcome is going to be. There's discussion of completely doing away with the categories of designation. There's talk about keeping the existing system, but adding additional information to the F5. So we will continue those discussions and be of resource in any way that we can. Of course, we've got our budget hearings, as the director mentioned. Yesterday, we had Senate Finance. That went well, and we had several members, I will say, interested and complimentary of our agency and how we continue to work with them, and how there are some resources that they recognize that we have been without for some time. Of course, it's a difficult budget session with the economic fallout from COVID. So we'll just wait and see, and again, be of resource as we can. Moving on to non-legislative issues, of course, this year's Peace Officers Memorial will be a little bit different. we do expect to continue to have a ceremony, but it's going to be off-site. We have arranged to have one of the Austin ISD football facilities that is nearby to the Capitol. It's down the street. It's called House Park, for those of you familiar with Central Austin. And we are planning a ceremony and candlelight vigil combined event at that location on May the 2nd. And so as details come out, we will certainly send you the invitation and details for that. We plan for it to include a processional of law enforcement participants, obviously not up Congress. It will be approaching the football field. There will be a stage and seating for the families and for the law enforcement participants as well, in a way that we can manage to be socially distanced and take some COVID protocols into account there. But I wanted to put that on your calendars for May the 2nd. That'll be a Sunday evening event. We are still awaiting information on whether we will be able to have the achievement awards at the Capitol this year. Of course, last year's we were not able to hold. And so we're in a little bit of a fact-finding mission on that as well. We had been told that most events at the Capitol on the Capitol grounds were being declined for the time being, but that may be changing with the governor's announcement for opening up some items next week. But we'll continue to keep you apprised of that. The last thing I have, I do want to echo the thanks for all staff's work on the racial profiling reports and getting those in. It has been yeoman's work without a doubt, but that had received a lot of legislative interest leading up to the deadline and going forward. And so I'm happy that we were able to report back to the legislators who had asked that we have really good news. 15 is not a number that any of us would have banked on, but thanks to Lieutenant Cannella and thanks to the field agents and the IT staff that have been working through that process, I really want to echo that thanks there. And that concludes my report unless there are any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Grigsby? Okay, Colin, we're going to go back and see if. Okay.
Hey, everyone. Just one thing, Gretchen, on the pertaining to the legislative session. Any legislative requests that we've made, any updates in that realm?
So most of our requests are related to our sunset bill. We did not make a whole lot of additional requests outside of that. We have been working with a couple of offices on what the F5 could look like, and that the filing of the idea that we had is imminent. Hasn't been officially filed yet. The other thing that we really were working on as a cleanup relates to school marshals and unifying their expiration date to make it simpler for all of them to get their renewed training, as Commissioner Atkins, of course, is extremely aware, so that they're not piecemeal throughout the year for their expiration date. We can have that consistent with our continuing education deadline on August 31st. And so that has been filed in the House and the Senate. Hearings have not started yet. They really don't begin legislative hearings until the 60th day of the session, which is next Friday. And so after that, I expect bills to start moving. But, you know, rumors abound with this session. And so we've heard a multitude of things on how many bills will be allowed to be heard and passed, and what the content of those may be. So, you know, we'll continue monitoring and working with our member offices as best we can.
Okay, thanks, Gretchen.
Okay. Any other questions for Gretchen? Thank you. And then Cullen.
Madam Chairman, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. As has been pointed out by the other directors, field services has been fully engaged in working on getting the agencies in their regions compliant with the racial profiling push this year. They learned how to assist Lieutenant Canella in both the data entries and the nuances of getting their people into compliance, but it really has been an agency-wide full court press to get to the 15 described. So I'm proud of the efforts and the input of the 9 field service agents out there proactively getting chief administrators in compliance. In speaking of compliance, on February 22nd, we ran the first training compliance run. We often refer to it as non-compliance, but they have time to get compliant. So it's really a compliance run. As of February 22nd, 36,049 peace officers had not met all the continuing education requirements for this unit. 8,720 jail licensees have not met their continuing education requirements yet, and 3,380 telecommunicators. So in credentialing and field services, we're turning towards working on continuing education compliance, but I wanted to give you some preliminary numbers on that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair,
Director Vickers.
I'd like to dovetail in on something I was going to mention in my report, but I thought that I might have a good opportunity later in the meeting, and this is a good time when we're talking about compliance. I've been approached by numerous chief administrators that are concerned about training and about COVID and the impact that it had on training. And I've explained to every one of them that the requirements for training and non-compliance or compliance, as Director Grissom put it, are statutory. It's nothing that we have any authority to work with or to change or to waive. With Gretchen's help, we've been in a lengthy discussion over time with leadership, state leadership, on how best to handle this. And we kind of asked for an answer, got down to the point where we said we really need to let officers know exactly how this is going to look as we approach August and the end of the unit. We got our answer back this week, and I wanted to get we've not told anybody in the state. You're the first group that we've told, and so through the meeting it will come out. But decision from state leadership has been there will be no change in training requirements and in training deadlines. So it is business as usual as far as compliance with the continuing education requirements, and I'm sure we'll be following up with various chief administrators over that, especially the very large agencies. If they haven't been, a lot of them shut down their training back in March, their in-person training, and there's some of them that may have some catch up to do to make sure they get compliant by August, but we're going to help them any way that we can. But that is the decision from state leadership, and we support that, and we will make sure it happens. And training compliance for this unit will be carried on as normal with no change. I wanted to go ahead and make that announcement to you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Patricia?
Yeah, this is for Director Grissom. Last meeting, you were telling us about a marked increase in the number of out-of-state applications that have been received. Did you get any more information on that to see how it compared to prior years? And what those numbers are?
I think part of I think part of it was a perception thing. When we look at the numbers, I don't think I would classify it as a marked increase. I think comparing it over time, we're seeing about the same number of people. I think some came in a clump or a group of people. And so I think the perception on some of the employees was that I'm seeing an increase in what I'm doing right now, but when compared over time, I don't believe it's quite as big an increase. I don't have the numbers in front of me though.
Okay. Well, if you say they're kind of back to normal, that's great. It just, was something you all brought up last meeting, and like you said, it's always worth going back and looking and seeing, is it just like a timing anomaly thing?
Well, another thing, and I probably got ahead of the news last time. We've had an increase in inquiries, but not necessarily an increase in actual applications for moving to Texas. So probably more phone calls, not a lot more applications.
Okay, thanks, Colin.
Jason?
And this might be for, well, I don't know if for Director Vickers or Mike or Colin. So when we talk about the training requirements staying the same through August 31st, I think all of us in the profession are probably good with that. I think from each agency perspective, they're going to have to address how they handle their in-service or training requirements in order to get the 40 hours and all the requirements. So I did notice that we did put the state and federal law update on our website for free. So anybody can take that off the TCOLE training site. But what about specifically, is there been any kind of rule relaxing or policy relaxing on delivery of online training, such as in this format, right, that we're doing today, for agencies that want to do that or not? Have y'all seen an increase in that, or are people reaching out to you? Can you kind of give us where we are today on the things that are coming in for that?
We, I can hit that one. March of last year, when this started and academies started shutting down, shortly after that, we started getting requests for alternative delivery of the BPOC. We did approve for cognitive portions only, that they can do it in this manner with some other restrictions, make sure that they have classroom monitors if they're doing 10 people in a room or 40, or if they're all on their own device. That did after we realized it was not going to be a few weeks or a few months. Some academies have come back and requested for continuing ed to be delivered in this way. And as long as they have the platform and the capacity to deliver it, and it is cognitive only, no physical skills or practicals, we've had those requests to do some of the physical skills over video. We have not seen the technology or the ability to do that in what we feel is a proper manner. So some are doing continuing ed via WebEx or Zoom or even GoToMeeting, but not everybody. So if they do want to, they can reach out to us, and we've been in communication with all the providers, kind of touching base with them. Some of them want it, and some of them are able to do it. Some of them just do not have the staffing or the equipment to be able to deliver it in that manner.
So are you guys seeing an increase in agency only reporting outside of academies as a result of this? Or is it more, or the licensed academies still holding consistent in the number of hours and things that are getting reported?
There's a slight decrease of academies and providers because of restrictions, class sizes, and so on. But I would have to go back and look at the departmental reporting to see if there was an increase in that.
So I think my other part. So I understand the BPOC, right? I think that's a completely different animal than continuing education. So setting aside the basic curriculum, that agencies can, if they want to do face-to-face, they can put mitigation strategies in place to be able to conduct that face-to-face or that particular part of training. But in specific to continuing education, I guess I'd be interested to see what the numbers look like, Mike. If normally I would send, if I'm an agency executive and I would normally send all of my continuing education to the COG, and maybe Commissioner Atkins can talk about it from her perspective. But because I can't, I'm doing agency only reporting through the GoToMeeting platform, and I'm reporting that myself outside of obviously the licensing classes that you have to have reported by an academy, your intermediate classes, what that number looks like with that. And then we also have some of our classes that we can't deliver online. I think we have certain restrictions on some of our intermediate classes that cannot be done in this manner. And so, that poses another issue for those that need that during that time frame.
I'll get some reports run to see what the departmental reporting looks like and do a comparative of the contracts and academies and their delivery in the last 12 months.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I may, I mean, I've got some more discrete numbers on non-compliance on peace officers. The bulk, the largest number, 23,000 of the 36,000 have just not enough hours. They're not at the 40-hour mark. If you're looking at some of the courses you described, crisis intervention training being one of them that cannot be delivered statutorily. It has to be delivered face-to-face. There's only 763 that have to have CIT. That's the only class they're missing. The de-escalation. So those numbers tend to be in the 200 to 500 range for those face-to-face classes. We thought that would be a bigger impact. We thought the lack of access to the face-to-face, and that's why I have the more discrete numbers. But cultural diversity, the one of the ones when it's not an hour number, but a course that's tripping them up. Cultural diversity and special investigative topics are two of the ones that stand out. There's 1,400 people that need those courses. That's what's driving not being in compliance. And both of those are available online. So I thought there would be a bigger hurdle to overcome with, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong number on CIT. So when you add across all of them, about 5,000, I'm sorry, wrong number, about 5,000 need CIT. So the 40-hour CIT is a legislative mandate, face-to-face delivery. So that's kind of the margin. The greatest bulk are actually missing 40 hours. I guess one other outlier that people have asked for, so I wrote it down, is we have, let me make sure I give you the right number. I'm sorry, I don't have it, but there's, I want to say several thousand people that have absolutely no training in this cycle. And I can get that number to you, but I want to say it's about 3,500 to 4,000 have 0 hours of training in this training unit.
Wow. So that makes sense, Rod. That's really what I'm getting to, is when you hear the number 30,000 people that potentially could go into non-compliance, it sounds like a large number, but that was part of my question. When you drill down to those specific classes that you can't get online, what is that number? And if I hear you right, that number is right in the 3,000? Is that what you said for the CIT that we have to get in person?
About 5,000 CIT. So that's a much smaller number. That the face-to-face is what's tripping them up.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably see some that getting caught up. Now that things have changed, or maybe with some of the orders, maybe we'll see some more training coming up. But I wanted to kind of talk about that big number and see where we were with that. So that makes sense now. So I don't have any other.
By example, I'm in that big number because I only have 39 hours. And I guarantee you I will get another hour of training before August. So we can break that number down, if you would like, into 10-hour increments. Who's got 0 to 10, who's got 10 to 20, and kind of give you a scale of how much work needs to be done to come into compliance.
I don't know that would be as beneficial for me as the numbers that you already have, right? So the 0 number, and then the numbers on the CIT and your other intermediate classes that are required. I think those numbers that you already have is perfect, and that's what I was trying to get to. So, Madam Chair, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions regarding any of the staff reports? Oh, I am so sorry, Brian. I left you off of that when we switched Colin around. So we have the finance director's report. Brian Roth. My apologies, sir.
No problems at all. Good morning, commissioners. You have in your packet the normal financial report, and it includes expenditures and revenue. I wanted to quickly go over our grant progress so far. We've successfully completed 2 school marshal grants, and we are awaiting approval on a 3rd school marshal training grant. We have also successfully completed a curriculum grant, and we're about 60% successfully done with a 2nd curriculum grant. Kim mentioned that unfortunately we won't be holding our conference this year, so any associated revenue with that conference will not be coming in as well. And lastly, we are still under reduced travel and a hiring freeze. We were lucky in getting Jayla hired because we started that process, the hiring process, before that executive order came into action. That's the end of my prepared remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Brian, do you expect there to be any negative budgetary impact because we are not holding the conference this year, or is it something that can be overcome?
One of the things about the conference funding is it's funded primarily from registrations of individuals and vendors. So by not having it, we won't collect that, and we just won't spend the money that we won't get, if that makes any sense. So no, to answer your question directly, no, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Hester?
Brian, on the distance learning revenue, I see a large number there in November. Is that a revenue or is that an expense amount?
That is a revenue amount. We are able to, there's a provision in Article 9 of the General Appropriations Act, which allows us to transfer any unused money from one year of the biennium to another. You can't transfer outside the biennium, but as long as it's one of those 2 years, you can make that transfer. And that's what we did. We didn't fully expend everything in distance learning for FY20, and we did transfer that balance. We UB'd it to fiscal year 21 to be able to expend it.
So what was the total UB for 20 to 21 across the agency?
I want to say it was 17 or 18,000.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
And Commissioner Burris.
Yeah, kind of in the same vein, but specific to us, I just wanted to throw out there, given the announcement recently by the governor, but we still have travel restrictions and people still have individual concerns about COVID. What are the thoughts of the presiding officer and the commission on having in-person meetings going forward? You know, and are we going to be allowed to continue in this forum for the future? Obviously, like, we don't really know that at this moment, but I just kind of wanted to put out there the idea that what this might look like going forward.
Kim, I'll defer to you first.
Thank you. The governor, while the governor relaxed a lot of the requirements, face mask and the business to be closed, he was a little guarded. They were a little guarded on moving forward with the state agencies. However, they did relax quite a bit of stuff that we can do. We can't mandate masks in the offices, but we can highly encourage masks in the office, which we're gonna maintain a lot of what we do. I'm really hoping that by June, if we can continue this downward trend, that we can have an in-person meeting in June. If you, just my personal preference, I've gotten very used to virtual meetings, and they're very easy because you don't have to travel. But I don't think that our stakeholders are served as well through a virtual meeting as they are an in-person meeting. Yes, travel is a concern that we're going to have to look at, but we're doing very well on travel right now. We've continued to be vigilant in monitoring how much we travel and not just taking off with it, but making sure it's absolute necessary travel, and take care of business. So I think we're going to be fine. I couldn't really read from your comment which way you feel about it, and that's totally your personal feelings on it, and I wouldn't step on that one way or the other. But I'm hoping that the main problem we've had on the having to have the virtual, especially this month, is having a location, because the Pickle Center, University of Texas, and the Pickle Center was not allowing anybody in at all, and finding an appropriate place to hold this where it really fits, and it's a good place to have this meeting on places that were available, it has been problematic. And so I don't know where the Pickle Center will be come June. I'm not sure where the COVID situation will be come June, but I am guardedly optimistic that if that's the way that the commission chooses to go, if they would like to have an in-person meeting, that June very well may work that direction, but we won't know till we get a little bit closer to it. Unfortunately, we can't wait till the last minute, so we kind of have to have a decision at least maybe a month or 2 months out, before we start putting things in place to do it. So that's kind of where we stand right now.
I would echo what Kim said, and I think each meeting, there's a hope that the next meeting will be in person, and unfortunately we haven't been able to make that happen as of yet, but I too am cautiously optimistic that June will be in person. We will certainly poll the commissioners to see that everyone, or that the majority, is comfortable meeting in person, and also be respectful of the TCOLE staff, because many of them have to be present to ensure that the meeting goes off. So we will weigh all of that, and hopefully it will be a different landscape and a different picture in a couple of months. The governor certainly sounded very optimistic the other day, and we will share in that optimism and hope we can meet in person in June. Is there any other comments or questions or thoughts about that? Commissioner Hester?
I would agree with trying to get together in June, and I would say, I guess I would say to Director Vickers and staff is if we're able to find a location, and if we have to mitigate things similar to what they're doing at the Capitol, where you have to get your test to come in the door for the 15 minutes or however that is, that we probably need to start having those conversations now, if that's the planning part of that, to try to get those tests on hand, make the requested dishes, and do those different things, and have that set up, and that if we communicate that's going to be the method moving forward, so that it's not a last minute deal for any of the stakeholders that want to come in for that meeting in person. So I just asked if that's the direction we go. And I personally, speaking as Jason, I would prefer to be meeting in person. Maybe we have to do a blended where even some staff are online and some are in person, and I don't know what it would look like, but we could probably need to start the planning process of that.
Yeah, those are great points. I think that if we do have it in June, as you stated, there will need to be a lot of planning for that to make sure that we can meet safely. So last meeting, we entertained a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burris.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put out there, since I clearly didn't state my opinion. I just put it out there first. I haven't received a vaccine yet. I've tried a bunch of times, and I'm still trying, but that's not something that looks immediate for me. I know I'm not going to feel comfortable traveling. My husband and I, he is vaccinated, but we're pretty much just at home still. So I know I won't feel great about getting around until then, but given all the things that might need to be put in place rather quickly, I know June may be a little bit difficult to get that done. So I'm not really going to hold my breath on the June meeting. If you guys can't make it happen, then you can't make it happen. But I definitely think by September, we should be good, and the vast majority of us should be vaccinated by then, and things will look really different at the rate things are getting rolled out right now. So I feel pretty optimistic that September we can definitely finally see each other after a really long time of two-dimensional seeing each other.
Well, you've also made a lot of great points, and I know that the decisions have been thought through very carefully, and I think first and foremost was the consideration of everyone's safety, but also being respectful of how people feel and how they would feel about getting together. And, you made a point, many of us in law enforcement, of course, we're in the first group. And if we chose to get the vaccine, most of us have received second vaccines, but we're also, I know just dealing with my personal family, I mean, we've got people that are vaccinated and people that aren't. And I think you've got to be respectful of those who have yet to be vaccinated. So that will definitely factor heavily into the conversation and the decision, because we have many of the TCOLE staff that have not been able to receive the vaccine either. So I share your thoughts. I would hope that by September it's an automatic yes. I think June is still, we can be cautiously optimistic, but there will have to be a lot of things that fall into place very quickly for that to really work through. So any other thoughts or questions? Okay, last meeting, we entertained a motion to accept the reports. Do we want to do that again this meeting? Commissioner
Yes.
Hurt? Do we have a motion, I guess?
A motion to accept the reports as presented.
And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Atkins has second. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lemo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. And we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is taking action to enroll and induct officers in the Texas Peace Officers Memorial Monument. Director Grigsby.
Thank you again, commissioners. So these names that are before you are individuals. They happen to all be COVID-19 deaths that have, since the previous meeting, been approved by the Employees Retirement System for benefits, which by statute makes them eligible to be placed on the memorial monument. First is Corrections Officer Jonathan Keith Goodman, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, April 21st, 2020. Chaplain Akbar Shabazz, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, April 23rd, 2020. Director N. Kyle Goodman, Bexar County Fire Marshal's Office, July 14th, 2020. Chaplain Walterio Rodriguez, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, August 13th, 2020. Corrections Officer James Weston Jr., Texas Department of Criminal Justice, August 26th, 2020. And Chief Deputy Constable M. Wayne Rhodes, Denton County Constable's Office, Precinct 2, December 1st, 2020.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to enroll and induct the officers presented by Director Grigsby into the Texas Peace Officers Memorial Monument.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Griffiths has seconded that. Ms. Jackson.
Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lemo.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
We will move to agenda item number 6, the discussion and taking action on proceedings for revocation, suspension, and other disciplinary actions. And today we have with us from the Office of the Attorney General, Mr. Raymond Winter, and it's good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
Very good. Then I'll proceed with the matters on your agenda. You have a number of licensees for your consideration today on default suspension orders. These jailers and peace officers failed to respond to notice of disciplinary proceedings instituted by the executive director and consequently are in default and subject to the imposition of default orders issued by the commission to suspend their jailer and or peace officer licenses. And I'll read the list of the individuals before you that are subject to this action, and the executive director does recommend entry of default orders suspending these licenses. These individuals are Joshua L. Abshir, Jaron F. Bullock, Marisol Esquivel, Betsabe Garcia, Ricky D. Leaks, Orlando Luna, Elvia Mercado, Aaron Metzler, Adam Miller, Elizabeth Montoya, Ryan Pena, Libmar Rodriguez, Marco Rodriguez, and Eric St. Cyr. Again, all of these individuals failed to respond to notice of the disciplinary action and are now in default and are subject to the entry of a default order suspending their licenses, and the executive director requested that order be entered. Those orders be entered.
Commissioner Hester?
I make a motion that we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter the default final order to suspend the license that Mr. Winter read from Joshua Ashbeer through Eric St. Cyr.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Mr. Winter?
Commissioners, the next individual before you has entered into a negotiated agreement with the executive director, staff, and we have before you for your consideration an agreed order. He's actually, he agreed to the terms that we mailed out. It's an agreed suspension waiver. And so this individual accepted the agreed suspension when it was actually served on him without further negotiation. And it's in the manner of Danny Lee. And the executive director requests that you approve that agreed suspension waiver.
Commissioner Hester?
I'll make a motion that we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a final agreed suspension waiver for Danny Lee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson?
Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Mr. Winter?
Commissioners, the next individuals all defaulted on disciplinary proceedings, and their misconduct rises to the level of justifying a revocation. So again, these folks failed to respond to notice of the imposition of disciplinary proceedings, are now in default, and the executive director recommends entry of default orders revoking the licenses of Daniel Brown, Divine Brown, Michael Carlson, Raul Flores, Edward Petschelt, James Stevens, and Carl Van Sluten.
Commissioner Hester?
I'll make a motion we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director and enter a default final order to revoke the license of the names read off by Mr. Winter from Daniel Brown through Carl Van Sluten.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson?
Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank
Motion-
you.
Yeah, motion passes. Mr. Winter?
I got distracted, commissioners, and I don't remember if we just did the default cancellation. I don't think we did. The next item on your agenda is an individual who received a jailer and telecommunicator license And subsequently to the issuance and receipt of the license by this individual, it was discovered that he was in fact not eligible under the existing standard. We have sent this individual notice of our intent to initiate cancellation proceedings. He has failed to respond, and he is now in default and subject to entry of a cancellation order. And the executive director does recommend that that cancellation order be entered, which would then deprive this individual of the 2 licenses he possesses. So we would recommend the entry of the cancellation order for Lawrence B. Hall.
Commissioner Hester.
I make a motion that we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a final default cancellation order for Lawrence Hall.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson.
Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the next individuals indeed did negotiate terms on proposed settlements, proposed suspension orders with the executive director, and we have successfully reached agreements with these individuals and do recommend entry of the agreed suspension orders with the following: Matthew Huizar, Heriberto Rivera, and Lamarcus Smith.
Commissioner Hester.
I make a motion that we accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter an agreed suspension order to suspend the license of Matthew Huizar, Roberto Rivera, and Lamarcus Smith.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson.
Commissioner Atkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Burris,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffiths,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hood,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Lameau.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the remaining items on your agenda for disciplinary matters are all informational only. You have 4 individuals who, by operation of law, are subject to and actually have had their licenses revoked for felony misconduct, felony convictions. They're listed for your information. There are also a number of individuals who have entered into agreements to surrender permanently their peace officer and/or jailer licenses in connection typically with some ongoing criminal proceeding against them. You also have reprimands both for administrative violations, reporting obligations, as well as for failing to comply with legislatively mandated continuing education. All for your information purposes only.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Winter? Well, thank you, sir. It was good to see you.
Nice to see you, Commissioner.
Okay, and agenda item number 7 is receiving public comments. We did not receive any requests for anyone to speak today, so we will move to agenda item number 8, which is going into executive session. We will be going into executive session today. Are there any questions from the commissioners or staff on I should say technical questions on how we are to do that?
I just have one quick comment. I did want to put out there that we did receive by way of electronic communication earlier, someone's public comment that came to the commission. But no one is speaking today, but we did receive that.
Yes, thank you very much. So we will be going into executive session. I don't see any questions related to that. So Ms. Jackson, if you'll show at 10:45 that we're moving into executive session, and we will hopefully be back shortly.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like we're waiting on, there we go. If everyone can help me look, it looks like everyone is back. Does anyone see anyone that is missing? Okay, it is 11:04 and we are back from executive session. There were no items to take action on as a result of the executive session, and we're going to move to agenda item number 10, which is adjourning this meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? And we have a second with Commissioner Griffiths. Ms. Jackson?
I don't know that she made it back.
Oh,
I don't see her.
I was going to say, now that
I don't see her on, but
You can do a raise hand.
I'm the secretary and I can take the call. So if ever,
well, again, thank you everyone for being here today, commissioners and staff, but also those of you that joined us online. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
I see 8 members' hands raised. Any not in favor, raise your hand. I show none.
The motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. You all have a great day.
Thank you. See y'all.
Good to see everyone.
Have a good one.